You're listening to Live and Local with Jac Underwood on 2BS 95.1 FM.
I'd like to welcome to the program now Federal Senator Perrin Davey. Good afternoon.
Hey Jac, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm actually quite interested to have a chat to you today as a woman in federal politics about the Jenkins report, the Set the Standard review that has been released. And in Commissioner Kate Jenkins' forward, she writes that the review makes findings and recommendations to ensure that the Commonwealth parliamentary workplaces are safe and respectful, and that the nation's parliament reflects best practice in the prevention of handling bullying, sexual harassment and sexual assault. Do you think that this review was overdue?
Look, you can never be complacent in these things, can you? And I mean, what is pretty horrific about the report is the examples that are in there and some of the experiences that people have had in our federal parliament, and it should never happen in any workplace. Unfortunately, this report shows quite clearly that our parliament is not immune, and so we need to take the report very seriously. We need to take the steps as recommended, take steps to ensure that people feel safe, feel supported, but most importantly, feel like they can speak out, because what is clear from the report is that people have just not felt safe in reporting incidences when they happen. And the problem is if you don't hear about it, you can't take action to address it. So in people keeping quiet, they've actually helped facilitate this culture unwittingly, unknowingly, and it's not their fault. But what we need to do now is they've been brave, they've come out, they've spoken, and we need to listen.
What's been your experience? Because some of this report covers off on bullying.
Oh, look, I feel quite privileged. I have actually had a very positive experience, but I've also come in, I'm a rather tall, confident woman who came in as a senator, so I'm a peer. I haven't had the same level of power imbalance that other people may have experienced. I'm older, so I've got a whole world life experience behind me, so I have a bit more confidence. So I have been lucky, but I want to make sure that the young people coming in who are working for me or working for other people aren't put at a disadvantage because they don't have that same level of life experience. I want them to feel supported and to get confident and to, know that they should be able to work in that place and not even have to worry about what may or may not happen to them.
Parts of the report, well, a lot of the report actually, and you touched on it there, talks about power and about the abuse of that power. It results in misconduct. But in a place that is all about power, getting it, using it, maintaining it, how can ethics be implemented within this environment? It seems like quite a task.
Well, and I remember reading about when this sort of incidences were being reviewed and reported on in the Defence Force and in the mining industry, and I always sort of scratch my head and go, how have we allowed this to happen? But unfortunately, it's not isolated, and it seems to not be unusual. What we need to do is work hard to make it unusual, make it an isolated incident, make it not happen at all. And to do that, we need to acknowledge that it's a problem, and I think this report is the first step. We've acknowledged there's a problem. Our government has already implemented processes. We've now got a independent support line for staff to utilise. We've got better support services already in place, and there's a couple of her report recommendations that we will be acting on sooner as we look at all the rest of them. But, we are looking at actually establishing an Office of Parliamentarian Staffing and Culture to support parliamentarians in their human resources, because I walk in that place and I become a boss overnight, whether I've had any experience or not, and very little support for me to be a good boss. So we're setting that up. We're also setting up Independent Parliamentary Standards Commission to handle consistent responses and to do independent investigations into reports. So we are already taking steps to make sure that we improve our workplace and that it becomes a better place, and so that we can stamp this behaviour out.
With the previous Jenkins report, it was the Respect at Work report. It sat around for around 2 years before some of the recommendations were actioned. Can the public be forgiven for thinking or assuming that all the recommendations in this report will not be actioned?
Oh, I understand people's cynicism. And one of the things about the Respect at Work report, that was about, workplaces in general. So when we look at what we can do as a government, we need to separate out what is our jurisdiction and our responsibility, or what is the responsibility of individual workplaces, what we can do unilaterally. And it does take time. And even with the 28 recommendations in this report that she's just released, a lot is up to government to do. But then there are recommendations such as, gender balance targets that are actually outside of government alone. So political parties need to establish whether they're going to put in gender quotas, or individual employers need to work out whether they are willing to establish gender quotas in their internal offices. So we need to go through all of the recommendations, and we're going to do that with the other parties, so with the Labor Party, with the Greens. We're going to bring everyone around the table and go through all the recommendations and establish the right way to go about it. But we're not going to drag the chain, and as I said, we've already put in place certain measures, and we know she's recommended these officers and commissions to help, and we're looking at how we establish those in the short term.
Just on another issue, just off to the side of that, in the past couple of months, there's been a lot of commentary around a federal corruption body, such as New South Wales ICAC or Victoria's IBAC. In your view, why is the government seemingly hesitant to set up such a body?
Well, we've actually drafted legislation to set up such a body. We've put it out for exposure a couple of times, I believe, and we were ready to introduce it, but we were told by the opposition that they would not support our version of a corruption commission. So we're sort of in limbo. We could go back to the drawing board and start again, or we can continue talking to the opposition to fine-tune it. We are willing to establish a corruption commission, but what we want to make sure we don't do is repeat some of the... we don't want to just carbon copy some of the state commissions where we have seen issues in the past. We want to learn from the state bodies, and we want to get a fit-for-purpose and appropriate commission set up federally that will hold us to account and hold the public servants to account, but not act as a kangaroo court.
If you have just joined us, we are speaking with Federal Senator Perrin Davey. Now, moving over to something closer to home, because the Regional Banking Task Force will be in Orange tomorrow.
That's right. We are having a meeting in Orange. We're meeting with some of the councils that have been directly impacted by regional bank closures. It's our second meeting of the task force. It is a closed meeting so that people can talk freely and give us, very frank feedback. And then we will also be consolidating the work we've been doing since the last meeting was held a month ago. But I felt it was very important that they got to meet some of the people who'd been directly impacted. I think we've also got the local president of the CWA coming in to represent those interests. So I think it will be a very informative meeting. We're also going to look at some of the submissions we've had to date, and I understand you were talking to Choice last week, and I'm very much looking forward to their submission. Choice do some fantastic work across the board, and they're very good at consolidating feedback and personal experiences and putting it into language that we can actually utilise, and potentially sometimes choice can give us some great ideas and options for the future. So we're moving along with our regional banking task force. I really hope that we get some ideas for ways forward for the many, many regional areas that have seen banks close, but also some ideas for the banks in the future such that maybe they don't have to close. Maybe, closure is an option of last resort, and there's better and more practical options that they can actually put in place going forward.
No, we're nearly out of time. I've got 30 seconds left on the clock, so I'm sorry to do this to you. But in other big news that is really close to home in Bathurst, the National Central Council meeting will be held this weekend.
This weekend, we've got National Central Council hitting town Thursday, Friday. We've got the Young Nationals Conference on Friday and Saturday. So there'll be, Nationals at 10 paces everywhere in Bathurst, because we love Bathurst, and I'm so excited to spend the weekend in Bathurst.
Looking forward to seeing you here, and have a safe drive. Thank you so much for your time. We'll catch up with you in another couple of weeks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. See you. That is Federal Senator Perrin Davey there, and as you heard, the National Central Council meeting will be held in Bathurst this weekend, and the Young Nationals are also coming to town as part of that.
Authorised by Perrin Davey, the Nationals, Danila Quinn.